I'm excited to be working on this next image. This is a really interesting beer with a great story behind it. This is the Reverent, and it's by a brewery called 6 Mile Bridge. They're kind of an interesting story. It's a husband and wife team. They're from South Africa, and they are paying tribute to the 5 big game animals in Africa that are endangered. So I'm attracted to this one for a couple of reasons. I love the label. It's awesome. So I started thinking about the idea of this brand, the idea of this particular beer, and the idea of big game, and kind of what did that mean to me? Because remember, what I want to do is find a storyline, create a storyline behind the images that are going to be the driver. Now again, I don't know if people are really going to look at these images and go, oh, that's exactly what Rob intended. But I need to build a storyline that gives me something to jump off from, something for me to start to pull resources, props, ideas, surfaces to build into a theme. So with this, I started thinking about safari, clearly. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? But I started thinking about safari in a very specific way. I started thinking about it in terms of the British. How do the British safari, particularly how did the British safari in like 1920, 1930? And I've always thought of them as having kind of an elegance, right? Even on safari, they'd have a nice tent, and things would actually be pretty well pulled together. It's not just the run-of-the-mill stuff. So that started playing in my mind, kind of that antiquity almost, that bit of old world British safari. That became my theme. So I started to look for some props that would kind of fit in with that. Obviously, old wood was a very important one. I found this tray, which also kind of has a Moroccan type pattern on it. To me, that also kind of said old British travels, old British reach of their empire, so to speak, kind of that history of England in just a simple thing as a pattern of a tray. Now again, will people know that? No, but that's the way my mind is going to help build the story, and I want you to think about those types of things. Build the story, let it percolate in your mind and give you something to step further and further down that line to create what is hopefully going to be a unique image. So from that point, when I was thinking about the Brits, I also wanted to add some more personal stuff to this. I wanted to come up with something that, to me, had a little bit of meaning, so I did 2 things. I'm a huge Beatles fan. It was the soundtrack of my life growing up. When I think of safari, I think of a journal, somebody writing in a journal. And I started thinking about John Lennon. The very last album that the Beatles did in the studio was Abbey Road. And the last 7 songs, or there's a group of 7 songs called the Sun King Medley. And they were all songs that came together that John Lennon just wrote little pieces down. They were bits that he wrote when he was in India. That kind of idea of having these thoughts and writing them down while you're on travel, while you're on holiday, that played into it. So I have a journal back there, and I have pieces from all of those 7 songs written in that journal. Nobody's ever going to know. When you look at that, it's going to be out of focus. Nobody's ever going to know. But again, this is storyline. Gives me something to feed off of. And then the one last component that I wanted to tie this kind of idea of a bygone era, a past date that I'm bringing into this image, was an old image, right? So if you're a traveler and you're away from home for a long time and you're on safari and it was 1920, you would have images of your family. You would have that old kind of black and white photo that you'd be carrying. So I actually have a photograph of my grandmother holding my mother as an infant in her lap in the seat of a car that she actually purchased. My grandparents actually purchased that car from this building in 1929, 1930, somewhere around there. We don't know the exact date. But so that kind of comes full circle for me. The reason why I'm sharing you all those details, I want you to start to think about building stories this way. It's really going to change the way your images are. When you have a theme, when you have a storyline, when you have things that you put together that are personal and they're not just totally random, whether the viewer looks at it and knows exactly your intent or not isn't the point. What it does, it gives you a very cohesive image. They'll feel it. They might not know every detail of the story, but they're going to feel the sense of what you were trying to accomplish. Those little details are going to help grab that viewer. Remember, you want to grab their attention, you want to hold them, you want to get them to think. When you do that, you win. And by putting those extra details in there, you're really going to grab the attention of the viewer. Okay, so let me bring you up to speed. We've got our surface, which is a dark wood surface, just stained it. It's not shiny at all. I don't feel that being on safari you'd have this really shiny surface. It wouldn't be like a lacquered piece of wood. It would be kind of dusty and old, and it would be getting, you know, the dust from the safari out there. We've got this tray. I have an old camera from my camera collection, but I am doing something a little bit different. In fact, Tomas and I have been kind of debating this because I love these glasses. I think they're really interesting, they're really unique, and I think they're a bit of a twist. You're not convinced that they're the right glasses?
Nope.
No, but I like them. My image.
Yeah, it's a photo. You do it.
To me, again, it has that idea of antiquity. Like somebody would be traveling. Like years ago, people used to travel with a liquor suitcase, right? They would, like, I have a friend whose parents traveled with a martini suitcase. Whenever they'd go anywhere, they had glasses and they had their bottle of vodka. It was a specific suitcase just for that. Those glasses remind me of how somebody back in 1920, 1930 would have traveled. They would have been traveling with their own set of glassware, their own set, or their own special whiskey bottle or whatever. So that, again, that played into my mind. Whether it's real or not, I don't know. I built that story. I've got my journal back there with all the Beatles notes from Abbey Road, from the Sun King medley, the photo of my mom and grandmother, and then this little church key to open the bottle. So this bottle is really different too because it's built like a wine bottle. It's really dark. In fact, it's just jet black. The beer inside of it is actually a very dark, reddish, amberish stout. We're going to be pouring some into the glasses. We've already done a little testing just to see what the color looks like. I wanted to put some in the glass so I could visually see it. This is not going to be dressed in any way. I'm not going to do any kind of spritz or slush. You just wouldn't do that with this particular bottle. And definitely not in this particular scene. So we're going to go ahead and just really kind of build this composition. We've got a few things that we want to bring into the background to help give it that idea of maybe being in a tent on safari. Then why don't we go ahead and start to build this? I am going to try to keep my lights down to a minimum for you. I do want you to see that you can do this without a ton of lights. I will probably have 4 lights out there total. We're definitely going to have the pan head coming over again. That's, like I said, universal in all my sets. We're going to put some fabric in the background and get light coming through that. I want to get some texture on the floor because I am at a high angle. I wanted to come up because looking down across this tray is just going to cut the bottom of the bottle off. I wanted to come up, look down into it. I'm also still using the 90mm lens on this. If I went with a 50, I'd have some of that parallax and bowing of the bottle and the glass that I don't want. So we're going with the 90, it's up a little higher and it's back a little bit. Then we're going to bring in the IMPA spot, of course, to kind of hit the label, and we'll be moving that one around. We're going to use one light in multiple positions, triple light, both labels and the various glasses that are on the set. So let's get started, shall we?
Yeah.